over and over again, and I think it's important for us to really talk about that word and how we can help gain it for patients, and that's what today's seminar is going to be about. Independence, despite visual impairment, is a phrase that I tend to use a lot with my patients. When patients are first told that they have a visual impairment, the biggest fear that you hear from most of them is that they're going to lose their independence. What am I going to do if I can't see? How am I going to get around myself? How am I going to take care of things? To face the challenges that people are going to face from visual impairment, you're going to have to embrace the tools that are available to help you keep in your independence. And today we'll be going over a whole list of different tools that are available to keep people independent. This decreased visual acuity, it just doesn't have to lead to a loss of independence. Many patients listening right now or people who are attending this webinar, I would imagine, have visual impairment and yet are living very independent lives. I have many patients and friends who are visually impaired who actually lead quite full lives. And so the first thing I try to get patients through when we're talking about a new diagnosis of visual impairment is there does not have to be a loss of independence. There are many things that are available to help you when you're facing the visual impairment. To kind of take a step back and make sure we understand who we're talking to and what we're describing, there's a term that often comes up, low vision. It's a term that is slowly losing favor. Our practice for years was labeled as a low vision optometry office. That word is not as descriptive as it should be and has some negative connotation to it. We're shifting to a phrase of visual rehabilitation, and I think that's a better term. But if we were trying to define what low vision was or what patients who need visual rehabilitation are, we would say it's any chronic, uncorrectable visual impairment that limits daily functioning. Notice when I define that, I'm not saying 20/60 or worse or 20/40 or worse. Those are numbers. Those numbers, frankly, help us as doctors to monitor people and see where they're at from year to year, but they really don't describe how well someone's functioning daily. And frankly, that's more important to the patients, and it should be more important to us as the doctors. So if a patient has been told that they just can't be corrected with medication, surgery, contact lenses, regular eyeglasses, that would put them as a candidate for someone to receive vision rehabilitation services. There's another term that I think is important to understand. There's a term called legally blind or legal blindness. And the strict definition of that comes from the government. And the first criteria is the central visual acuity cannot read any letter on the 2100 line in the better eye with best correction. That 2100 line would be on the specific chart, the ETDRS eye chart. You used to see this definition included the number 2200. What happened, though, was we started having better eye charts that had lines that didn't go just from 2100 to 2200. We actually had 2120, 2160s, and we didn't know if we could call those people legally blind or not. And the powers that be changed it so that we can use the ETDRS chart. You can be 2120 and you're considered legally blind. Second criteria that we use besides just your central acuity would be your peripheral vision, your visual field. If your visual field subtends an angle no greater than 20 degrees, you're also considered legally blind. That would come in a condition such as retinitis pigmentosa or other peripheral vision problems where someone might see 20/20 but their field of view is only 5 degrees. They are considered legally blind at that point. This is a term that has, again, negative connotations to it, and frankly, when I declare someone legally blind, I spend quite a bit of time talking to them about it because I don't want them going home believing that they are blind. Legal blindness is frankly, it's a tax term. It's a term to determine if you're eligible for a tax write-off. It also is used in making some determination about disability requirements and things. But ultimately, it's not a functional definition of someone's vision. I have patients who are legally blind who are also legally able to drive. Now that sounds like those two things don't go together, but you'll see as we talk that there are options to help people continue to keep independence and in some cases even drive. Independence equals 20/20 vision. Again, that's a thought that we try to break for people. We have some lists on this slide of some things that kind of put into perspective what kind of vision do we really need. If you were to go into a restaurant like a McDonald's and there's a menu up on the wall, typically you need about 20/80 vision to see that menu. To see your microwave controls, you need approximately 2100. Newsprint and newspapers requires about 20/50. I hear from my patients every day that the ink is not as good as it used to be, so maybe we should lower that number to 20/40. But 20/50 is kind of the number we usually notice. If someone can see that, they still are able to read their newspaper. Grooming, doing your makeup, your hair can vary depending on how detailed you are with that, 20/50 to 2100. Typically, a general rule that we find to be pretty true would be that independence is threatened when the vision starts falling below 20/60. That's when driving becomes more difficult. That's when reading becomes more difficult, and you start needing more than just a regular pair of glasses. The final kind of starting background information I always like to make sure people understand. As I'm talking about all these tools that are available, a lot of my patients will have in the back of their mind, well, if I'm using all these things, is it going to make my eyes worse? Isn't straining my eyes making my eyes worse? And the truth is you just cannot damage your vision by using your eyes. And you cannot preserve your vision by not using your eyes. That's kind of the same way of saying the same thing. People who stop using their eyes and stop reading, I really do believe get worse faster than people who continue to use your eyes. There's no study that proves that, frankly, because I don't think many people would sign up for that study. But it is something that I feel that I see the patients who continue using their eyes, continue working, using the tools that we'll describe today, continue living their lives as independently as possible. I do feel like they stay better longer. Now, I tell patients if your eyes are straining and they're hurting, you're allowed to take a break. The eyes are not, the problems we're dealing with in the eyes usually are retinal issues or corneal issues. Neither of those tissues are muscle. They can't be exercised. But in the case of the retina tissue is nerve tissue. Nerve tissue, when it's not stimulated, does tend to atrophy. And so the more you're stimulating that retina, the better. So moving on to our tools. Our tool number one that we use to help patients stay independent is we explain that they need to enhance their contrast. Now when I say contrast, the best way to describe what I'm talking about with that would be it's sure a lot easier to see paper that's white with black ink on it as opposed to like a newspaper that's gray and black. And most people who have visual impairment will understand that very easily. Again, if we keep in the black and white colors, that tends to be the best. Now, I do have patients who also have problems with glare, or for one reason or another, they will do better with a black and yellow, or even a blue or yellow. But the idea is you want contrasting colors to make it easier for things to stand out and see. And we can do this in the home. Some ideas that we talk to people about. When you're choosing the plates that you'll be putting your food on, if they're heavily decorated or patterned, a lot of times that makes it more difficult to actually identify which food is which and where it is. And if you stick with more either a dark color or a white plate, you'll find that you'll be able to see the food more easily. I tell patients when you're using coffee cups, you'll want to use a white cup because you can see the black coffee pouring up much easier. This is a slide showing two pictures. One of them, they're filling the coffee in a white cup, and one in kind of a, I don't know what color that is. It's an orangish color. And you, for those of you who can see this slide, you can see that the black coffee against the white mug is very easy to see, and you're not going to overfill that. Here's a slide that shows some pictures of some dishes. The picture on the top, you have a white plate on a blue placemat. And so a person who has very limited vision is still able to see where the plate starts and where it ends. On the bottom picture, where they have a very fancy white lace placemat, the plate blends into the placemat. And so seeing where the plate ends and where it starts is very difficult. And that's when you'll see people spilling on their table much more. Using utensils that have contrasting handles is another strategy that patients can use to be able to eat more independently without people having to help them with that. Here's a picture of someone who has laid their medication pills on a white countertop on the left. I have very good eyesight. I have a very difficult time seeing all those pills against that white counter. Now the same medication laid on a gray placemat, it's very easy to identify where those pills are. And so tools like this in the home are readily available. I have a whole series of slides we're going to go through just to get you thinking about ways you can change things in your home to make you more independent. Here's a picture of some dials on the left. They aren't marked, and it's decent contrast. It's kind of a gray on white on the numbers. But many patients would have a hard time seeing that. On the right, what they've done is they've put a red sticker next to the high, a blue sticker down on medium, and then there's a black dot on the top of the dial where it's showing where it's pointing. So if you line that black dot up with the red, you know that you're at the hottest area. If you line it up on the blue, then you know you're kind of at a medium power. And so without having to actually read the numbers, you can see where you're at on the dial. Here's a washing machine where, again, they've put a blue sticker on the cold and a red sticker next to where you would point it for the hot. And they've also put a little green sticker on the actual dial itself to show where it's pointing. Here is a dial that was just built with very good contrast on it, black and white, and that makes it a lot easier. Here's an example of an outlet cover. Again, the one on the right has good brown color compared to the white actual outlet, and so someone trying to plug something in is going to be able to see where that plug goes much easier than on the left where they're both white. This is a little more graphic picture, I guess, but in the bathroom, a patient is going to be able to see is that toilet seat down or is it up on this one. Another way we can enhance contrast is we can use filters. This is an example of some slip-in sunglasses. They're actually yellow tint. We find that when people are in the yellow spectrums of colors, that can actually enhance contrast, make things stand out. There's a lot of times in my exam I'm using my nice white and black high contrast ETD or SI chart that's lit up, and patients will feel like they're doing pretty well. And then I'll say, well, try this, and I'll slip the yellow glasses in, and they'll say, ooh, wow, those letters really stand out now. And what they're doing is it's helping enhance the contrast. You see shooters wearing these in the Olympics. You also see ball players when the sun is going down wear yellow sunglasses sometimes because when the sun is setting, the contrast is at its lowest, And so they find that when they use the yellow tint, it helps enhance that so. And that's a good tool for our patients as well. Another way we can enhance contrast is to use electronic devices that we'll be speaking about a little later in the webinar, where they can take actual printed material that's printed on low contrast material and change it into high contrast. Second tool that we like to talk to patients about is increase illumination. Now, when we say increase illumination, the reason that makes a difference is the better the lighting that you're using, the better the contrast is going to be. A gray and black newspaper on poor light has lower contrast than when we point a very good direct light right on that paper. The grays become closer to white and the black stay a little more black. This is important. Even someone who doesn't have visual impairment, who's just aged in the way that we would expect someone to age, in their 80s, is going to require nearly 3 times as much light to see the same material as a 20-year-old. And that's just because they're losing their contrast sensitivity as the years go by. And that's a normal change. A person who's visually impaired is going to need even more lighting than that. And so we tend to recommend gooseneck lamps, flashlights, illuminated magnifiers. This is an area where I'll show you some pictures in a moment, but our options when it comes to lighting have really increased in the last few years. A big reason why they have increased is the LED lights that are now available that are more energy efficient, and they produce a very nice white, clean light. And people are always asking me, what is the best lamp or what is the best bulb to use? The truth is the sunlight is really probably the best light we have. I practice in Arizona, so there's a very large amount of the year where going outside and reading in the sun is just not an option because it is 120 degrees out there. However, having the sun coming through a window at your back can be an option. If you can't get that set up, there are light bulbs that try to mimic the sunlight as well as possible. GE produces a GE Reveal light bulb that's a spectrum of light that's fairly close to the sunlight. Those GE Reveal light bulbs do tend to heat up, so you have to be somewhat careful with them. The halogen lights were big for a while, but we don't see them being used as much again, a lot because of heat. Fluorescent lights are kind of a, you love them or you hate them. I have patients who can't stand the fact that our office has fluorescent lights on the top, and other people say it's great lighting in here. When the fluorescent light is flickering, I think, is when people really have trouble. A lot of the new lights that you'll see on the market do use essentially a fluorescent bulb, and the advantage to it is it's a nice warm or daylight fluorescent. You have some choices there, but it doesn't create as many shadows, and it's just good for overall room illumination, and it doesn't heat things up. Here's an example of a conventional light on the left, and then more of what we would call one of these fluorescents as the hot light, producing a nice clean white light on the picture. The top photo in this slide is showing a 100-watt just can floodlight 12 feet above the countertop. If we take that same light and only use a 75-watt instead of 100, but put it 12 inches from the page, it's much cleaner, brighter. And so with lighting, it's not always just what bulb you're using, but how you have it positioned. And so here's a patient who has a light positioned in a way that we tend to recommend. What you'll see is the light is actually in front of the face. Most people will naturally put the light behind their shoulder, so they're getting that direct light on there. The problem is if it's behind you, it can catch your glasses on the edge and create glare, and we don't want to create a problem. So having it in front of your face and putting the direct light on there can make it better. Here's someone who's using a good direct light that's below them. It's not creating glare in their eyes. She also has a magnifier set up too, so she can write with it. Here's an example of a gooseneck lamp that can be put onto a sewing machine Again, where we've come a long way in the last few years are in these portable task lamps. This is one that plugs in, that you can carry around with you and set up, and it produces a very good, clean light. And again, there are many, many options on these. Here's one that actually has a battery that charges, and it's very lightweight, so people carry it around. We're demonstrating here that some of our patients who like to play cards, when they put a little extra light on the card, they can see what suit it is and what card it actually is, and that's a helpful thing. This is a picture of a light that we have that we can attach to things. We have it attached to a screwdriver, so when someone is actually trying to use their tools, they're getting light directly where they're trying to see. And for a long time we've had lights that can clip to books, and the big improvement in those, again, has been the LED lighting is able to produce a much greater amount of light than we used to be able to. And we even have options where it can be a combination of a light and a reading stand. The reading stand is helpful because it gets things up closer to you, and in a moment you'll see why that's important. So we've talked about enhancing contrast. We've talked about increasing illumination. Next, recommend for patients is controlling glare. Light, as I just described, can be your best friend. It can also be your worst enemy. I have patients who will say, oh yeah, I need a lot of light, but if I get a lot of light, it really makes it hard to see. So we need to work on controlling glare. Glare can reduce your vision and cause eye fatigue. There's different ways to decrease glare. We can decrease the amount of lighting. We can cover the windows. You know, when you're out in the sun, you have to wear sunglasses for that. Some of our options for glasses for controlling glare are that we can actually use tinted lenses. With tinted lenses, I always talk to patients about the fact that there are many different colors available. Patients who are just severely glare sensitive tend to do better with the darker tints, and a lot of times that will be in the gray spectrum of colors. Some patients, they say, well, I don't wear sunglasses because they make it too dark for me. Patients in that situation tend to do better with more of the brown tints, and especially the yellowish brown or the amber tints. Now we can do those in fit-over sunglasses, ones that actually fit right over your glasses. We can do slip-ins like I showed you with those yellow ones before. We can do clip-ons that flip up and down, or we can actually take a prescription lens and tint it the color. So depending on what the patient prefers, there are many ways of getting this to patients. For years we've had transition sunglasses. Transition sunglasses are great in convenience because you're not having to hold another pair of glasses. The biggest downfall to transitions is for our patients who are very glare sensitive, a lot of times they don't get quite dark enough for them out in the sun, and so they'll still use a fit over in extreme glare situations. And then we also have inner reflection coatings we can put on glasses. Other ways to control glare, a lot of our patients will wear hats or caps or visors, and just keeping that light from above from hitting on the eye does help. Some people will actually put a filter over glossy pages to help cut that. Again, we talked about lighting from behind, and then patients who have medical problems like aniridia, where the colored part of their eye hasn't developed, and naturally they're getting dramatically more light hitting their retina, we can use special contacts to cut the amount of light that gets to the retina using pinhole contact lenses. Here's some pictures of some different colors. Again, it's hard for me as the doctor to tell someone you need this orange, or you need this yellow, or you need this brown. A lot of times that really just depends on the person. And so what we tend to do in our office is we actually have a tray of colors and have patients hold them up and see which one is going to work. A lot of times I have an idea just based on the way they've described their vision and how sensitive they are to the glare, but it is important that people try them on. And I included some slides of some of the fit-overs that people wear. They've become much more comfortable and easier to use than they used to be. Here's another example of some. The next tool, tool number 4, that we use, other than enhancing the contrast, increasing illumination, controlling glare, we can also use other sensors. Here's a picture of a talking watch and a talking keychain. And so the idea with this is if a patient just is not going to have the vision to be able to see a watch or see a clock, why not use another sense where we can push the button and it'll tell you what time it is. I have one in my office right next to me right here that I'm monitoring the time with. If I push the button, I don't know if that came through, but it told me what time it was and told me I'm right on schedule right now. Sound, it can be helpful. One of the unfortunate things, and again with sound there are many products available. You can use talking watches, talking scales. Another thing we use sound for would be audio books. Patients will get books on, well, we used to say books on tape, but that's, I don't know there's a lot of tape players out there as much anymore, so audio books is a better term. And then sound has become even more important now that we have new electronic magnification devices that do actually have the ability to scan pages and read to you. Again, what I was getting ready to say is, unfortunately, if your hearing isn't very good, these products just aren't as helpful. And you know, there's always that old wives' tale that if one sense goes away, the others are going to take over, and unfortunately that's just not usually true, especially in the population I work with. So I have a lot of patients who don't see very well and they don't hear very well, and so a talking watch isn't going to help them. But for someone who does have some hearing, it just adds the independence of being able to know what time it is and not having to ask what time it is. That's a little thing, but what we find is all those little things really add up the more and more you're having to rely on other people. If we can get it to where you can do a lot of these little things for yourself, it's going to make life much easier. The next tool is frankly more what people think about when they think of my job and what I do, and that's magnification. Now, people always ask me, well, why does magnification work? You know, what I can't see it. I have missing spots in the word. How come making it bigger makes it easier to see? And this slide is trying to show that. At the top, we have a sentence, and it's printed in a pretty small font, and there's little spots missing from it. And it's a little bit difficult to see each word because part of the word is missing. As the words go down the page, we've made the font bigger and bigger, but we've made the spot that's missing the same. And so what happens is, as the word gets bigger, the percentage of that sentence that's getting blocked by that missing area is much smaller. And so because of that, the person is able to read the sentence much easier on the bigger one than the littler one. So that's our way of trying to help people understand why making things bigger makes it better. The blind spots that are in the vision and the damaged part of the eye has not changed. It's just it's affecting a smaller percentage of the material that you're trying to see. Now with magnification, there's really 3 types of magnification. And I like to explain this to people because if you understand the 3 types, you'll better understand how you can manipulate your environment and the tools you have to work better. The 3 types are relative distance magnification, relative size magnification, and angular magnification. And we're going to go through each 3. The first one, relative distance magnification, is pretty simple. When you get closer to objects, you see them bigger. If I am 10 feet away from something and I move up 2 feet away from it, I have just made that object 5 times bigger in my eye. And so what you're doing in technical terms would be you're enlarging the angle that the object subtends on your retina. So the amount of your retina that's taken up by that object is increased when you get closer to it. And most people know that. They know that if they look across the room and look at someone, they don't see them as well as if they are right next to the person. I have a slide here kind of demonstrating relative distance magnification. Here's a television. it looks like Oprah's on today, and we're sitting on a couch across the way. That television is taking up a pretty small amount of the area of the eye when you're looking at that distance. Here's the same television when you're up only about a foot away, and you see it's taken up nearly the whole view, and you're able to see the detail much better. So getting closer to the television is a strategy that I'm always telling people to do, and I get funny looks when I tell people to do that, because there's an old thought out there it's been around forever that if you sit close to the TV, you're going to hurt your eyes. And it's just not true. I tell patients I don't recommend that for the 4-year-olds because there is a chance that maybe that could lead to nearsightedness later in life. But most of my patients are not 4 years old, and they are safe to get up there closer to the TV. I tell patients, they see me typing on a computer as I'm doing an exam, because like many offices, we've switched to electronic records. I tell them, if sitting close to the TV was really going to hurt your eyes, what do you think I'm doing to myself here looking at this computer all day? And I'm not hurting myself with that, and I promise them, I say I would not want to hurt myself, so sitting close to the TV is perfectly okay. Now, relative distance magnification, can be physically getting closer, standing up and getting closer to something. It's also something we can use when we're using glasses. A big strategy that I use as the doctor, and you'll find that doctors who practice in vision rehabilitation do more than the average doctor out there, is we do tend to prescribe much stronger glasses for reading than the average doctor out there. The reason most doctors aren't comfortable with that is frankly because the stronger we make a prescription, the closer the patient is going to have to hold the reading material to their face. And if you just aren't comfortable explaining that to patients and really helping them to accept that, it's going to be a difficult thing for the patient to accept and do well with. And so we spend a lot of time explaining to patients, here I can make you see, but you notice you're having to hold the material right next to your face. And when you do it every day and you spend a lot of time with patients, it's a pretty easy thing to watch someone and know, hey, this is someone who's going to be able to adapt to this, as opposed to, oh yeah, this person's never going to get comfortable holding it close. And that's the best thing we can do, is help patients see, is this an option that's going to help. But when we make a stronger prescription, it's not the actual lens that's making the difference, it's the fact that you're able to get closer. So if I go from a standard prescription that puts someone at 16 inches, and I give them a much stronger lens that focuses them at 4 inches, well, they're 4 times closer to that object, so they're making the image 4 times bigger. Again, the trick there is determining whether or not someone can be comfortable and actually enjoy reading at 4 inches. The next type of magnification that we use a lot of is relative size magnification. And again, fairly simple. You make things bigger. Large print items are examples of relative size magnification. Here's a picture of some lined paper that we have in our office that patients can use when they want to write letters. Believe it or not, we still have patients who write letters instead of just using the computer all the time. And when they write, they're able to write bigger because the lines are spaced more than conventional paper. And the lines themselves are thicker and more bold, so it's easier to see where to write. We also use these 20/20 pens because they produce a nice black thick line, but they also don't bleed through the paper very much like some felt tip pens do. We have patients who will mark their pill bottles where they write the name of it very large. Here are some other examples of large print items. There's a watch that has high contrast in large print, and you'll find that a lot of our large print items also include high contrast as well. There's pictures of a kitchen timer there, bingo card, the measuring cups there. The print is larger, and again, the contrast is there. Here's one of the biggest remote controls I think you can get. I tell patients another thing that's nice about these is they don't tend to get lost in the cushions of the couch as much because they're just too big to fit down there. so you don't tend to lose them as easily. Here's a large print phone with large numbers on it, and large print calculators. Frankly, I could spend an hour showing you large print things, but I want to keep moving on. With the computer, that's something that we can use relative size magnification for. If you get a bigger monitor, it's going to make the images bigger. You know, you go from a 18-inch monitor to a 36-inch monitor, you've just doubled the size of the same size font in your eye. Okay, both Windows and Apple operating systems do have settings that you can go to make the computer more accessible, where you can make things bigger. We also are getting a lot of mouse options that have built-in magnifiers as well with just a click. There's large print software that you can load on your computers. Again, with the improvements in the accessibility options in the operating systems that are built into computers, it's not as necessary, but there are still some very big benefits to using the large print softwares that are available. Braille is also another thing that can be used. The optical character recognition is another thing we can use for the computer, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But making things bigger on the computer or making the monitor bigger are both things that can help. Here's a picture of a keyboard that has the letters printed larger on it. Now, the third type of magnification, and the type that most people think of when they think of magnification, is angular magnification. And what that is the object itself is not changed in size. We're not making the object itself bigger. We're not necessarily making the object closer to us. It's an optical system that's placed between the object and your eye that actually makes the object appear larger. And so this would be what you think of when you think of a hand magnifier, a telescope, or electronic magnification. So this is a picture of some hand magnifiers. The trick with hand magnifiers, the stronger the magnifier is, the smaller the lens is. I always have patients coming in, they want a magnifier the size of a page, and I say, well, we don't have that. I wish we did. We'd have a stack of them to the ceiling at the front door, but they just don't manufacture very, very strong lenses that are very, very large, and that's just because it's a difficult thing to manufacture, and manufacture in a way that people could actually afford it. When we're using handheld magnifiers, the thing we always stress at this point, there's just no reason not to have a magnifier that doesn't have a light built into it. I guess the only reason would be if you're someone who's just so glare sensitive that you can't stand any light at all, then it wouldn't matter. But most patients, the LED lights make a big difference. Stand magnifiers are much like handheld magnifiers in that the stronger they are, the smaller they are. The biggest advantage to stand magnifiers, as you see the lady using the stand magnifier here, she's putting the magnifier right up against the page. She doesn't have to hold it in space right at the right distance. And so being able to rest it on the page is very good for patients who have tremors and things like that. The hardest part about stand magnifiers is they do have to be paired with the right reading prescription to be able to achieve the best vision out of them. We also have telemicroscopes. These are binoculars that are focused up close. Those are very helpful for reading in that they allow you to hold things at a more natural distance. You see she's reading the same magazine there, not having to hold it as close. The biggest disadvantage to the telemicroscopes is that it is a very narrow field of view that you're looking through. Just like any binocular, it makes it a very small space you're looking through. The other disadvantage is it does decrease the illumination that you're able to see. Telescopes also use angular magnification. They make things bigger. Most people are pretty familiar with binoculars. We have monoculars that are one for one hand. And you hold those up and you can see through the eye. There's different types of telescopes, like the old opera glasses that people used to wear, except where you can wear them like glasses. Or people used to hold up, I should say. Now you can actually wear them. Handheld magnifier or telescopes are just like binoculars, only again we tend to use monoculars because it works a little more efficiently for our patients. You can see in this picture This is just an example of angular magnification through a telescope. This is actually looking out the front parking lot in our office. The two trucks on the left are very far away and hard to see. On the right, they're much bigger and closer and easier to see. The difference is you're also seeing a much more narrow area through that telescope. The last type of telescope we tend to focus on is the bioptic telescopes. Bioptic telescopes are essentially monocular telescopes. The difference is they're built into the glasses. They can be a binocular option as well, but they're built into the glasses and they sit right above the eye. The advantage to them is you can walk around with them, and some people are actually able to drive with them. They're a very steady option to look through because you're not having to hold it just right. And so some states allow people to drive with these. When we talk about driving with them, and here's a gentleman who's behind the wheel of his car getting ready to drive, I always tell patients there are some of my patients who are able to drive safely with these, and there are many who are not. And we go through quite a process to make sure we know who is safe and who's not before we would even consider putting someone behind the wheel with this. And I would say one of the biggest things you can ask yourself is, first, is my peripheral vision good? If your peripheral vision is good, then this is an option. If it's not, then it's not going to be. You can't drive safely with very poor peripheral vision because it's going to be hard to see things coming off from the sides. But if your peripheral vision is good and you also don't have blind spots in the center of your vision that are big enough that pedestrians could hide on them or cars could hide them, then you may be a candidate for this. Again, not every state allows these, but in the states that they do, they are a very helpful tool. Arizona allows them, and we've been fitting them since 2006 and had a lot of success with them. I tell patients I've said no to more patients than I've said yes to, but for the ones that we are able to say yes to, it's a great thing as far as independence is concerned. Another way we use angular magnification is we use video magnifiers, CCTVs. Now, video magnifiers have come a long way in the last several years. There are some major inherent advantages to video magnification that we just can't get with optical magnifiers or lens magnifiers. One is we can just get a very high range of magnification, up to 72 times. They also have a very large field of view when compared to magnifiers, because when you make it bigger, you are losing field of view, but there's still dramatically bigger area than what you're looking through with a magnifier. A 10 times handheld magnifier is literally giving you less than an inch of field of view, whereas you're looking at a 24-inch monitor, you're getting 24 inches of field of view, and so 10 times, and so it makes it much wider. The other advantage to the electronic magnification is we can enhance the contrast. That's the image polarity. So you can make gray and black items white and black, or black and white, or black and yellow. There's a lot of different options. So we'll go through some of the other advantages as we go through some of the different options that are available with video magnifiers. If there are any disadvantages that people bring up, one, they would say cost. The fact is the cost of video magnifiers is really very much in line with the cost of other technology people would be using as far as HD cameras or phones and things like that. And there are options available to help with this. There's financing available in most places who have these. State agencies provide them. The Veterans Administration provides them. So there are many options of how to help with the cost if that is an issue. People used to complain about portability. I can't take it to the store with me. That's not really a problem anymore, as you'll see. And then they'll say, well, I can't learn to use something like that. And again, that's just not the case anymore. They've made them very user-friendly. So let's go through some of the different types of electronic devices that are available. There are what we call the new HD and text-to-speech CCTVs, and this is something that's just brand new in the last year that's been really taken a big step forward for our patients. Then conventionally, we've always had the desktop versions. We have portable versions, and then we have the type that I still like to refer to as the acrobat class. So let's go through those. First one I'm going to show here is the MERLIN HD OCR Elite. The MERLIN has been a type of desktop CCTV for years. you'll see that there have been many new features added to it that have made it even better and better than it was before. The HD camera that's been put on it has made the image that we're seeing much better, especially at low magnification levels and high magnification levels. It used to be that we would see a lot of times at the CCTVs, they work great in the medium ranges, but on the very low or the high ranges, you did see a little pixelation on the camera. With these new HD cameras that they're using, we just don't see that anymore. It's very, very sharp at most all magnification levels. You also see that the text-to-speech option is something that's new. It says experience the joy of reading with a push of a button. The text-to-speech thing has been a big improvement on CCTVs. And what it is you can put what you're wanting to see underneath the tray, like this gentleman's doing here, and he pushes a button and it scans that page that he's looking at, and then it reads to him. And the advantage to this is forever we have patients who their vision is pretty poor, and they're able to read with their CCTV, but they'll say, you know, I can really only read about 30 minutes before my eyes just get too tired, and I can't finish what I'm reading. That they're having to constantly quit and go back and quit and go back. And what this text-to-speech really is doing for patients that I see is I still like them forcing themselves to read for a period of time as long as they can tolerate, because like I said before, I like patients using their eyes. But what it's really helped with is when their eyes get tired, they can now switch over to using the OCR, the text-to-speech capability, and let it read to them while they're kind of recovering on their eyes. And then if they start feeling better again, they can go back to reading. And so it makes it so that they can use the device much longer. It also opens up the option to patients who just aren't going to be able to see well enough to read. They can use the CCTV to help them. Again, we talked about the new HD camera. It's autofocus, so you're able to see much better with that. There's different size monitors. The 24-inch monitor has made it so you get a much wider field of view than the old 19-inch and 22 inches. There are a lot of ways you can personalize it as far as color schemes and magnification options. And the screen can move around, allowing you to make it fit your work environment a little better too. Historically, we also had the MERLIN LCD and HD options, and they're good as well. They don't have the ability to read to you in the text-to-speech, but other than that, they do very well. And they combine a large amount of magnification range with large field of view, which has always been the best part of desktop magnifiers, video magnifiers. They have the trays that allow you to move the print at a very smooth reading speed, so you don't have the motion sickness that you do with very loose trays that just go all over the place. And the controls are very easy to use. For those of you who can see the detail on this, it's literally a dial that you spin to make it big. If you spin it one way or the other way, it makes it smaller. And there's a button to push to change the color. And there's an on-off button. And really, if you know those three things, then you're going to be able to use this. And so very, very easy to learn to use and start using right away. These are both great options for reading. You can also write with them. And a lot of patients will use these desktop CCTVs for looking at photos. My grandfather has macular degeneration. Unfortunately, he got the wet macular before they have the new shots that help treat the wet macular. He has no macula anymore. It's just one big scar. His vision's about 1600. When my daughter was born, he came to the hospital and visited her, and he said, well, she sounds cute, but he couldn't actually see her. And that's kind of his humor. Well, when we put pictures of her on his CCTV and zoom it up real large, he is able to see her, and it makes him enjoy her quite a bit more. So not just reading and writing, but actually just looking at photos. He looks at old vacation photos and things like that, and that helps us too. The LED lighting is very good in these, and you can turn that on and off as you need it. With the MERLIN HD and the MERLIN LCD, you have different size monitors that are options, and that can affect the price level of them. And again, there's a large magnification range, and they have a 3-year warranty on them. The Acrobat LCD was a very important CCTV that came out a few years ago. It kind of revolutionized how we did CCTVs because not only were you able to read and write with it, you're able to point it at yourself and use it as a makeup mirror, that kind of thing. You can also point it off in the distance and see distance items. And so it kind of started a whole new class of CCTVs. And what we describe it as a portable desktop CCTV, which makes it ideal for patients that I work with a lot, because a lot of patients who I work with don't live in Arizona all year long. When it starts getting above 100 degrees, they leave for the summer, and then they come back in the winter. And those patients used to have to buy 2 CCTVs. Now they have one that's actually lightweight enough, and it has a case, and they can travel with it. Again, the moving camera head really is a big improvement because you can use it for working with your hands much easier because there's a lot more space underneath it. So I always tell patients who are very interested in doing hobbies such as doing models or sewing, using the type of CCTV like the Acrobat where there is a pivoting camera makes a big difference. And again, like I said, you can see your face and makeup and other people's faces. We point the Acrobat camera at my daughter, and my grandfather can actually see her face smiling at him, not just in a photo, but live. And so that's a big thing for him. Again, the cameras are autofocus. You can actually detach the camera and put it on another one if you're someone who's working in many different locations. It has different screen sizes that allow you to change the price level of them. Again, we really don't do a lot in the smaller screen size just because the bigger screens really are a big help. And so patients, when they're really showing them next to each other, they almost always choose the larger monitor, even though they are just a little bit more in price. And there's a 2-year warranty on these. The DaVinci is very much like the Acrobat in style. But it's very different because it has added the features that we were talking about with the MERLIN Elite, in that it does have the OCR text-to-speech where it will read to you, which is a huge improvement. It also has that Sony HD camera that just provides just a crystal clear picture at virtually all the magnification levels. And at this point, as much of a lover of the Acrobat as I have been, I do find myself changing my allegiances more towards the DaVinci just because it is offering more than what the Acrobat is. The Acrobat still has its place, but the DaVinci is really the one that we, in our office, we're using quite a bit of. And again, mostly because that image is just so clear, and having that extra feature of being able to read to you when your eyes get tired or if you just can't see has made a big difference. And so with the DaVinci, I think you're getting the best of all worlds, and so that's made it a very big part of our practice. The transformer is a great option for our patients who are students or who are constantly on the go, because they are able to point that camera at classroom where the teacher's writing on the board and see it on their laptop. It's very lightweight and portable, so carrying it from class to class or room to room if you're doing presentations makes it much more convenient than trying to lug a big DaVinci or other option around with you. It is also able to capture images, so if they have the camera pointed at the board and the teacher's written a full board full of notes, they're able to save that image, and that makes a lot easier to go back and study later on because they can just look at that saved image and zoom in on it and scroll around and see what the teacher's written, which makes note-taking much easier. And so it connects to a laptop, desktop computer, or monitor. And it weighs less than 3 pounds. So again, it's ideal for people who are constantly on the go. And a lot of the features are very similar in that you can custom the color schemes and things. The battery can operate for up to 4 hours. Has built-in LED lighting, which is important when you're in a dark classroom, so you can still see what's underneath the camera. And it has the auto install software, so you just plug it in with a USB port and it's ready to go, and it has a 2-year warranty. When you're getting to the portable CCTVs, the Amigo is a very large portable CCTV, which is a benefit because the screen gives you a bigger field of view. When I say very large, it's still small enough that you can carry around with you, which makes it a big advantage. And I have some pictures of people using it in different scenarios here. The portable CCTVs are very important for people, again, who are on the go quite a bit. It is the largest screen that we have for a portable CCTV, and the nice thing about that screen is it tilts up and down so you can get it in a comfortable position. Another thing I like about the Amigo is you can actually connect it to a TV monitor, so someone who's traveling can carry their Amigo with them, and they can plug it into a TV monitor and use it as a desktop CCTV. So it is a very versatile device, and you're able to freeze images, so you can hold it up to a price tag, take a picture, and bring it closer, which makes it much easier to see price tags and things in the store. And so the specifications of it, you can get up to 14 times magnification. The screen itself is a 6.5 inches. And it's got a 2-year warranty. Pebble is even more portable, and it actually comes in 3 different sizes: the 4.3-inch screen, the 3.5-inch screen, and then the Pebble Mini. And the idea with the Pebbles are they're for people who want to carry something in their and read with it flat on the paper like a stand magnifier. Very lightweight and very easy to carry around with you. The advantage to the Pebble is it's working like a handheld magnifier, except for it's getting you the better contrast. It's getting you a much better field of view for the amount of magnification you're using. You're able to angle it so you can write under it. You can freeze images. Again, there's just a lot of inherent advantages to the portable CCTVs that we just don't have with the other ones. And the specifications of it, again, there's different sizes on the screens and different magnification levels. And so that's, I think, where we're going to end the webinar today. I have a couple more things I was going to mention just real quickly. We can also learn to use our eyes more effectively. That's another tool. There's training that can be done where you can learn to find the healthy part of your eye, and that's an effective tool that's done by the occupational therapist in our office and many offices across the country. We also list as a tool that patients can use to help them stay more independent is just becoming more familiar with resources that are available. There are a lot of resources that are available to help people stay more independent, and it's important for you to be an advocate for yourself and look into those and find them. I give examples like you can get on your telephone service, most telephone services will allow you to set it up so that you can just dial 411, the operator comes on, you ask them to look up a number, they look it up, and they call for you. Normally you get charged for that, and a lot of telephone services you can get that set up for free when your vision is poor. So it's not something everybody needs, but it's an example that there are things like that. There are a lot of state agencies to help people get the tools that they need and the training that they need to use. And then the other thing we like to just mention to people is family is very important in this process. You need to find the balance of doing as much for yourself as possible, but at the same time allowing family to help you when you need help. And that's a hard balance, but it is something that everybody's going to need to fight to get to. And with that, I'd like to just again say thank you to Enhanced Vision for allowing me to present this today, and I think we are going to open it up to some questions at this time if people have questions that have come up from the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Huff, for that wonderful information. It was very, very informative. And if anybody has any questions, just type your question in, and we'll be able to answer that for you. Okay, Dr. Huff, I have a question here. It says, do you have any further information in the training the OT does in your office?
Essentially, the information, the term that you'll hear about is eccentric viewing training, is one major training that our occupational therapist is doing in our office. And what that is when someone has a blind spot in the middle of their vision because of something like macular degeneration, what she does is she helps people find where the healthiest part of the retina is, and then how they can consistently find that part of retina when they're trying to look at things. And in that training, what it involves a lot of times is, again, first identifying where that spot is, but then also really doing some reading techniques and things and some exercises that they can do to help consistently find it. I don't know that she has a brochure that explains everything, because it is, with the rehabilitation in the training, it's very tailored to each person, and she does a very good job of evaluating and really finding out, hey, this is what this person needs versus this person. We also are doing a lot of training these days on patients with hemanopsias where they've lost some of their side vision due to a stroke, and we have a actual device in our office that's on a big screen where they can lights flash, and we teach people how to be more aware of things even when they have a large blind spot like that. And the training we're doing here is also done across the country and in many other offices as well.
Okay, we have another question. It says, my son has Stargardt's. He uses an iPad at school, and it is an extremely useful tool. Have you all looked into iPad as a tool? We have actually linked his iPad to the teacher's smartboard so that he can see what they are doing on smartboards and document writers from his desk.
The iPad, along with a lot of the other technology that's coming out, we do have a lot of patients who use those. The advantage to a lot of these new e-readers is the contrast, and that is a helpful thing. A lot of the school systems are really embracing these things and making them more available. And it's frankly, it's a technology that's changing so fast, it's very hard for us to even keep up on. But the vision teachers within the school districts are doing a good job of getting those set up for patients. The limitation to iPads and e-readers is if the material isn't on the internet or on the computer or able to be downloaded, it's not allowing us to see live printed material as easily at this point. And so it is a technology that's been useful, but it is one tool in a whole spectrum of tools that we like to use. So, but we're big fans. I've been telling patients for the last year or two, all this technology is making us better doctors, because people are able to do a lot more and with this technology than what we were able to use to get them to do.
I have a question about if we are recording this webinar, and yes, we are recording it, and it will be available in a few days. You can email me at jscanlon, SCANLON, @enhancedvision.com, and I can send you a link to it, as well as it will be on our website in about 3 or 4 days, and on our YouTube channel. So you can go to youtube.com and put in Enhanced Vision, and it will come up. Okay, so I think that's all. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Huff, and thank to everyone who attended. Again, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, just give us a call at 800-440-9476. Again, thank you very, very much, Dr. Huff, and I just want to wish, I know it's a little early, but everybody a very wonderful holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.